Okay, just pulled the TR4 onto the operating table. I think I'm going to take the engine out first step and rebuild it. I'm behind on posting videos. I have the TR3 engine back in the 3, but not without some trouble. But that's another story. So I just pulled it in with the tractor, and it's pretty dusty. But I'm going to start taking this apart. Okay, going to drain the oil. Doesn't look like this one's leaking very bad for a British car. Just notice this has got the rack and pinion steering. A little different than the TR3. Looks like about the same spring plate. Looks like that tie rod end is pretty much shot. It's actually leaking a little bit of brake fluid. Surprised it still has any left in it. The exhaust is different than the 3 as well. It's a dual pipe all the way back, but it's pretty rusted, so it's going to need to be replaced. Another ball joint. Rubber's completely gone on that guy. It's also a different radiator. It's got a catch bottle. The TR3 didn't have one. So it's kind of interesting to see the differences. Looks like the same oil filter up there and the same oil pressure line. Looks like it's routed even the same. Master cylinder looks the same. It's braced in the same place. So, right, drain the oil, drain the coolant. This exhaust is pretty bad shape. It's been welded and patched a few places on the way back, so I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut it as close to the engine block here as I can, and then work on those bolts up there once I have it out, where I can get some heat on them, make sure I don't twist them off. I took the slave cylinder out. I think this was in wrong. I believe this washer should be on top because my oil pan was a little crimpled where this hit it. I think that was put together wrong by whoever had it apart last, but I'm not positive. Disconnecting the drive shaft. I put one dimple on each flange, and the dimples are adjacent to this grease zerk. On the rear, I put 2 dimples. I have the lower starter bolt out here. I took this plate off with one screw was missing, but took him off. And I wanted to disconnect the starter, and this is a Wentworth nut up here, but the lower nut is turning with it, so I'm going to try to take it out with the cable so I can hold the lower nut and not screw up the internals. Carburetor's out. The only trouble I had is there's a couple shafts that go between the carburetors, and one of them dropped out as I was taking out the carbs. I'm not sure which way it goes in, but it doesn't seem like it makes much difference. It's just which side the nut is on versus the head of the bolt. I'll take the radiator out. A couple mounts here. Kind of going upside down here. There it is inside the fender well. Mainly so I know how to put it back together. Got these guys loose and broke that hose free. Here's the other side. Then the generator, I'm going to take that out with the 2 wires here so I know how to put that back. So look at the carb, and these are the 2 shafts. So this one fell out, and I wasn't exactly sure which way it went back in. Could go the opposite direction, but it looks like it's symmetric, so it's just a matter of which way the heads face, I believe. So I'll look into that more. This one's easier because it's held by the linkage. So I probably will default to putting it back with the heads the same way if I don't find better data. This looks wrong. There's a big gap between the bracket and the exhaust manifold. So I'm wondering if maybe this water line should have been on the other side when it was assembled by whomever. kind of ugly, not looking like a well cared for engine. But this has the breather thing too, which maybe makes it look a little worse. So I have to get this off to get the exhaust manifolds off, but I want to loosen it in the right sequence, not just take this all the way out. This water pipe that went around here was really tough to get off. I'm not sure how you're supposed to do that because you can't pull it out over that stud because it hits on the block over here. Unless you take the stud out, which there wasn't enough room to get two nuts on. So a little bit of a mystery to me on that one. Okay, took the rocker arms off, and let's see. The intake and exhaust manifold were really tough. It was stuck on that pin. I was able to move it back far enough and then get some WD-40 down the crack here and then work it back and forth, and it finally came out, but worked up a good sweat getting that sucker out. So let's see, I want to get the head off, get the starter out. I'm going to disconnect the wire up at the solenoid because of that nut down there was turning in the wrong place, and I can work on that on the bench. I'm going to take out that stopcock, petcock, and see if I can let the fluid drain out. I can't turn the lever. It's really stuck, so I don't want to break it. So I'm going to take the whole thing out, and then I can soak the whole thing and hopefully loosen it up. A lot of the parts are out now. Really excited about more greasy, oily parts to clean and paint. But almost ready to pull the engine. I just have to get the radiator out. Making some progress here. The seats are out, tunnel's out. This extra bracket, I don't have that on my TR3. It goes from the tranny mount hole there up to where the shifter mounts. And the spacer goes on top of the transmission, just so I remember how to put it back together. And on the other side, on this side, there's a speedometer mount. There's a bracket tucked under there. It doesn't go anywhere. There wasn't anything connected to that, so I'm not sure what that's for. And then I had the wiring for the overdrive, which is color-coded onto those two guys. And then these two were from the switch on the bezel mount, or whatever you call it, that I couldn't get the knob off of that one. So I got the drive shaft loose here. So hopefully pull it out pretty quick. Mice had some fun in my seat. It's all chewed out from there through the bottom here. This tranny cover's in pretty bad shape, but I guess you can get replacements for $100, so I probably have to do that. Starting to pull the engine out. Weld up a screw eye on top of a bolt to pull it with the head off. I think it's easier to pull it with the head off. It's I can get more lift. I can get the harness closer to the bottom of the block, so I hope I have enough lift here to get it out and over. So this is all ready to go. I'm just gonna take my little 1x2 out. It is so close. The oil pan's just hitting that front cross member down there. And the transmission is so close to going past that mounting bracket so that it could drop down and then everything would work. So maybe a little more tipping and I can inch it forward. We're clear. It is so tight getting that out, between getting the oil pan over that cross member, not hitting the throttle linkage, and getting it under the ears of the tranny mount. One thing that what I'd do differently next time would be to take this out because I ended up catching on here slightly before I noticed it. I had to go lift it up. I hope I didn't damage the threads on that. So.